Hi everyone, my name is Rick Bray and I work with the PLIC team at Broomtown-Gabosi's. One of my goals is to help the teachers we support use technology when appropriate to enhance the learning environment for their students. Thinking about the start of the year, introductions can be a very difficult experience for some students. So here's an example of an activity where technology can help set up a positive environment for our learners. This introduction activity helps to provide connections for our students by creating a classroom culture, not just by day 1 and day 2 students. This activity can also provide opportunities for social emotional learning by creating a culture of learning in the classroom. Students are encouraged to learn on their own and from others, and there are certainly times where the students can teach the teacher. After all, we are all learners together. Third, this activity provides a low-stakes environment where students can learn and share technology skills that will be needed throughout the year. So this video is going to be a bit on the longer side, so feel free to scrub to the point in the video that fulfills your needs. In the first part of this video, we'll look at a general overview of the activity. From there, we'll break into the how of the activity. Knowing that there are multiple possible environments out there, we'll start off with 2 specific ones: media albums in Schoology and activities in Seesaw. Then we'll move on to some more general tools that are available in multiple environments. For example, assignments in Schoology and Google Classroom, and then finally a topic within Flipgrid. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hi everybody, Rick Bray coming at you from the PLIC Underground, and here we are getting ready to start school, and I thought I would share this activity for introductions with you. Now, I can't take credit for this activity. I first heard about this in a conference that I was at, and I wish I could remember who had the idea because it was absolutely brilliant. The whole idea was, it was a place for students to introduce themselves, yes, but that particular school had a very high transient population, so it was common that students would come in partway through the year, and that new student posted their information in this area for the class to share, but they could also look at the students and find out little bits of information about them that helped to bridge the conversation starters and make that happen a little easier. And I thought that, coming into this year, we could sure use that because certainly in the past, whatever we are now, year and a half, 2 years, we've had a lot of schools that had a Class A and a Class B, or day 1, day 2, whatever the case may be. And at some point, I'm really hoping this year, we're going to be able to all come back together and be a class, to be a full group. So let's start bridging those connections, even if students don't get to see each other. And maybe you have a student that's going to come in partway through the year and they could benefit this. So that's kind of the what this is. We're using a very general and I think ubiquitous tool, Google Slides, to be the presentation tool. Each of the different activities or each of the different platforms that we'll look at in this video may have a slightly different way to do it, but the general idea is the students are given a space for them to put their information. You'll see the different things I talk about. If you Google like introduction activities, you can replace those with any questions you want. But the students are going to have a place where they can put the information and submit that back to the teacher. The teacher is then going to take that and compile it into a large shared space that the students don't have the ability to edit on their own, but can be viewed by them, and if appropriate, viewed by the families of those learners. So just some different ideas there. That's kind of the what, right? It's going back to, like, I think about the original version of the Book of Faces at Harvard, right? Which eventually did become the Facebook, but it was just a way to get to know people and make those connections. So without further hesitation, let's get into the how of how we do this. Hi, whoa, hang on. One thing I thought about while I was making all the other videos, and I thought it would be appropriate to talk about now, is of all the things that we're going to be talking about in this video, Flipgrid is the one that's really different because Flipgrid doesn't require those 2 channels of communication. It doesn't require the student work coming back and then the teacher doing the curation. Flipgrid does the curation for you. So if the thought of trying to move all those pieces is kind of maybe a little roadblock and might be a little intimidating for you, maybe Flipgrid's the way to go, because all that you'll have to do is create the space, and then students can revisit that same space to meet their friends. So just a little thought before we dive in. Thanks. All right, everybody. So let's start with media albums in Schoology, because this is how I was first introduced to this idea. The basic premise is I built a media album, which if you're not sure, we'll take a look at how to do that in just a second. But I gave my students a prompt here to please post a selfie or a video answering the questions in the caption area. So all a student has to do is go to this part and add media. They're going to select a file, which if they need to, they can use their on-device webcam to take a picture, or they could certainly load one from somewhere else. And I'll just grab a different picture I have here. We'll grab this one, what the heck. And they load that media up. And once it finishes loading, there we go. They can click on Add Media. It's there. And then if they click on theirs, it'll say it's added by whomever, and they can edit the caption. Now, the caption was the answer to those questions. So I'll just say like 1, blah, 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 2, blah, 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 3, blah, 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 blah. And it's all there. That's great. I'll say save. Here's the beauty of it. They can just keep flipping between the different pictures. So they can say, oh, cool. So here's this person. This has to be Mr. Bray. And I asked them for how to pronounce their name. So it's Bray, just like the color gray, because I think names are important. And that's certainly part of social emotional learning when we think about that. Here's my goal. You're going to see these same things are done in a lot of the different environments. What am I most proud of? All the different information that's here. Certainly if I wanted, I could maybe make this picture have that information. But the idea is when I go to the album itself, there's the there's the picture of all the different students. And when they click in, there we go. They can view who they want to learn about, see the information, all the different stuff that's there. So how do I get this media album? Well, when you go to a class in a course in Schoology, you want to click on Add Materials, and down towards the bottom is Media Album. I can name it whatever I want. I have to give it a name. The description was the prompts that I put in. What do I want students to know? Again, you could load that in as a picture later if you wanted. So I might call it Meet Our Classroom, right? Put my description in. And then what's kind of important on the bottom is you want to make sure, number one, it's published to your students. You also want to make sure that comments are enabled if that's something that you want. You can certainly click it to disable comments. This is going to allow students to comment on each other's photos. So perhaps you want to start with that off, turn it on later. Maybe you want to start with it on, talk about digital citizenship. But what's really important is this icon here where instructors and students can add media. Otherwise, your students won't be able to post. They can also do this from the mobile app of Schoology if that's easier for them. Again, if I click that off and it's grayed out, you'll see only instructors can add the media. We want our students to be able to add to it and create it. There we go. And if you don't have any media to add right away, you can say cancel and it will still be there. And just like your students, they can add the media and go from there. So now that you've kind of seen how this activity started with the very specific to Schoology feature of media albums, let's see some other ways we can do it in other places. Next, we're going to move on to activities in Seesaw. Alrighty, so here is the activity I built in Seesaw for our introductions task here. And this is exactly how I would go through it with my students, modeling how to do it at first, especially if they're brand new to technology and or Seesaw. But I would click Add a Response, and I'm going to select my name because I have myself in the course. But I would tell the students they want to make sure they select their name. All right, so I'll select me. And here is the Google slide template that I made for this activity. And then I'll show you how you can bring it into the activity once it's there. Now, the instructions are up here. They're pretty lengthy, and I did record them so that students could listen to it if it worked for them. But the idea is they can either use the label tool, and in fact, in the directions, I asked them to do it both ways, to use the pen tool to write their name, and then the label tool to actually type their name out, which of course they may take some time finding the keys there, and they can move it, it suggests, over to the right of their name. So that way we have, their writing and their actual name. And it goes even further to click on the little dots and select the voice to record themselves pronouncing their name correctly, because names are important, right? Especially when we think about that SEL, the social emotional learning component. And then they can use, the text or the writing to write in this other stuff. They can use the picture, which again, they might need some help to cover up the giraffe picture. You may want to make it a little smaller so the student's picture can take it up better. But the whole idea here is the students are taking this picture, this task, and they're customizing it for their own needs, and then they submit it. Great. So how did I make this activity? Well, we said I started with this blank template. And then when I went to my class, I clicked the add button, just like you do with any other activity. And I said to assign an activity. And I did have to create a new activity for this. I realize it's right there, but I'm going to say a new activity. You can title it whatever you want. If you're familiar with Seesaw, you can add voice instructions. But the template for the student responses, that's where that Google slide is going to get attached. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. The way that I chose to do it in my case was to add it here, upload it from Google Drive. So I said to select from Google Drive. And then I just went over to the slide deck that I made, and that would be this one right here. And I said select. And that puts that slide deck as kind of the backdrop for the slides. Now, you may notice it does say, please type your name here. So I had to go and make some changes because different platforms needed different things. You can't edit this. So I would have to go in and take this out. But I could resize things, make it all fit, make life good. And when I click check, you'll see that the template is now attached for students to work on. So that student template is how you can get the Google slide backdrop in there built, I think, easier than trying to build it in Seesaw. But hey, your mileage may vary. Do what works for you. So that's how we can make the activity. That's how we can attach a template if we want. Now, how do we share this with the students? Well, let's head back to the classroom and take a look at that. All right, so here I am back in my class looking at my activities tab, and I can see that there's one response, or however many happen to be there for my students. And when I click there, it's going to, at the bottom, if I scroll down, show me the students' work. All I need to do is click on one of their responses, and then I can certainly go through them, see how it's doing. And when I'm satisfied, when I'm ready to save it, this is basically a JPEG, a picture of their work. So I can right click and select Save Image As. Now I'm on a Mac, so this next step might look a little bit different for you depending on the machine you're on, but I can rename this to maybe Rick Intro, right? Because it's the student's name and it's their intro activity. And I'm going to save it to my desktop just so I know where it is later. That's great. Save. Wonderful. Now what I'm going to do is head over to my Google Drive, and this is pretty much the same step for all of the next things, or all of the different platforms. I'm going to create, there we go, a new Google slide. And I might call it, once it gets done loading, there we go, 2021, 2022 introductions, or maybe just 21-22 intro for this. And I'll spell it right though. That's probably important. Intro. And all I'm going to do is keep a white picture. I'm going to, again, million ways to do this. I'm going to do it the way that will always work, regardless of what device you're on. I'm going to insert an image uploaded from my computer. I'm going to go find that picture. I happen to know it was on my desktop, and it was Rick Intro, and it's already formatted to the right size. I don't have to resize it because it started as a Google slide. It ends as a Google slide. Life is awesome. And here we go, right? So I can just add the next slide. I can add a blank one, and I can just keep making them for each of my students, and life is good. But how do I get this back to them, you ask? Wonderful question. Feel free to go back and watch this next part a few times if you miss it. That's why I'm making a video. Under File, I'm going to select Publish to the Web. Why am I doing it this way? Because it gives the viewing experience without all this other mumbo jumbo stuff, and there's no chance of edit access happening. So File, Publish to the Web, and I can do this either way. I'm going to select a link. That's great. Auto advance slides, if you want, you can change it to a different level. 3 seconds works for me. I am not going to select these two. Why? The first one starts the slideshow as soon as the player loads. So as soon as they click on this link that we're going to get in a second, it will just start. And every 3 seconds, it's going to advance the slide unless they tell it otherwise, which can be confusing. So I'm going to not do that. Same way, I'm not going to restart it after the last one. I'm just going to let them work through it. But I'm going to click this big yellow button that says publish. And it says, are you sure you want to publish? Yeah, I'm sure I want to publish. So now anyone who gets this link will be able to view this slide deck. And what's beautiful about this is if I were to make changes to the slide deck, I don't have the same link will get them there and it will automatically update. So you could put this out at the beginning of the year and make changes the entire time and it will constantly be auto updating from this same link. So just like it says, I'm going to do for the Mac, Command C. On a Windows, I think it would be like what, Control C, right? And I'll head back to my Schoology class. And now I have a few options of how I want to get it to class. Do whatever works best for you. I could make it an activity if I wanted and just have it call it like meet your class and put the link in there. Totally works. I could send it as an announcement. And again, I could select if I want it to go to just the students or the students and the family members. Certainly we want to be mindful of student privacy with that one. But there you have it, right? All I have to do is put the link in here. So, please follow this link to meet your classmates, right? Whatever I want to say in there, make it as long or short as is appropriate and just say, oh, not copy. Uh-oh, that might have ruined it. Paste. Oh, that ruined it. So I got to go back. Let's pretend I clicked that close. If you need the link again, File, Publish to the Web, and the link is still right there. Command or Control C, head back to Seesaw and say paste. Bam, there it is. Follow that link, you're good to go. Select the audience. Like I said, maybe we'll just do to students. Hit send, boom, it's there. Life is good. Alternatively, like we said, you could add it as an activity. There's tons of different ways that you could do that. But that is how you take and give the activity with all these wonderful little hints in here and buttons is how the students complete the work. You may need to walk them through depending on how comfortable your students are with both technology and Seesaw. They can also learn from each other as they go through this, which is kind of fun to watch. And I mean that in a serious way. It's really awesome to watch students help each other out and learn these things. And then once we get those responses, we're going to put them into our slide deck. And that link will constantly auto update after it's been published to the web. So there you go. That's how to do it in Seesaw. In the next section here, we're going to look at a little bit more general things. We're going to look at assignments and how they apply to both Schoology and Google Classroom. Okie dokie. So now let's take a look at some more, I guess I'm going to say generic tools that I think can be covered by just about any environment you happen to find yourself in, whether it be a true learning management system or not. I'm going to be looking at the big hitters in our area, which are Schoology and Google Classroom. But again, I think regardless of what platform you're using, you're going to be able to do something like this or make it happen in your environment. The thing that I think is important to start off with is that this is all based on a Google slide. Now, if you already watched the Seesaw one, sorry, you get to hear it again, but I'm kind of assuming that you just scrubbed right to this area. So I just created a Google slide template, right? And knowing that in both Schoology and Google Classroom, those systems can make copies of the files for my students. So I just kind of set it up as a template. I did not use what was formerly called the master view, now is called theme builder, I think. Yeah, theme builder. I didn't use that. I just built the slide with different text boxes and colors and pictures, and everything's wonderful. I put in 3 questions here. Like I said in the intro, you can really substitute these with any questions you want. So I don't really want to play favorites when it comes to Schoology versus Google Classroom, because I think in terms of this task, they're really doing the same thing. I also don't want to confuse you though by going back and forth between them. So here's the basic idea, right? We said there's 2 parts. The first part is getting students this copied slide deck, right? Their own copy for them to edit and turn back into me, which if you're familiar with Schoology, that's Google Drive assignments in Schoology. And if you're familiar with Classroom, it's assignments in Classroom, right? And then the second part was how I get it to the students. So we're going to look at that in just 1 second. So in Schoology, just to help organize it, I made a folder called Our Class. And in that space, here is the assignment right here, right? Please introduce yourself. So when we take a look at that, if I edit it, great. I have the title, we have some instructions here on what to do. And then I just attached that start of the year template for my students and created the assignment. And you'll see, yes, I'll talk about how below that is the actual slide deck as it's built from the teacher sharing that out. We'll talk about that in just a second, because that may be a trick to some of you. So in Google Classroom, I did something very similar. I created a topic called Our Class, where you'll see there is the assignment for that one with, again, that Google slide attached. Now, if you're not incredibly familiar with Google Classroom, when you click Create, for this particular task, I'm going to do an assignment. I'm going to title it whatever I want, put whatever instructions I want, and then to add that template, I want to add it from Google Drive, and that's where I'll select the template, right? Everything's grand there. But once I select it, you want to make sure you make the correct selection. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to select that and say Insert, Life is Grand. Here, make sure you change this from Students Can View to Make a Copy for each student. I can also select what topic I want to add it to, which would be Our Class, great, grand, wonderful. And when I look at that topic, Our Class, I also put a new material underneath it, which is the slide presentation you saw in Schoology as well. So regardless of Schoology versus Google Classroom, I used an assignment. I attached the template version, and my students can turn that in when they're done. So now let's see how I take that turned in version and make it into the shared slide deck where students can meet each other. All right, so unfortunately, I don't have any actual student information turned in on either of those assignments. So we're just going to look at it from this window, knowing that both Schoology and Google Classroom, right, when you look at the student work end of it, it pretty much gives you this view as the teacher. So the first thing I'm going to do though is head to my Google Drive and create a new slide deck. And I can title it whatever I want. For this, I'm probably going to call it 2021 Introductions, right? So let's get that done. All right, 2021 Introductions. Perfect. And I can get rid of this here. And this is what I'm going to share with my students. We'll talk about that in just a second. So I'll go to a particular student's work, one of their slides, and once it's good, once I've identified that this is one that can be public, maybe I want the student to make some changes, whatever the case may be, I'm going to go to their slide in, again, either Schoology under the Submissions or In Progress tab, or in Classrooms under the Turned In. Again, we're pretending that's this view, and I'm going to select File, Download as a JPEG the current slide. You can do JPEG or PNG, and it doesn't really matter in this case. You'll get the same result, but I'm going to do JPEG, and it's going to download into my Downloads folder, which that might look a little bit different because I'm on a Mac, but you'll get the idea. From there, I'll go to that Introductions slide deck that I made, and I think this works on Windows as well. I'll just take this picture that I just downloaded of a student work, and I'm just going to drag it up, and it's already sized to fit, right? Because it's a Google slide. That's why we started it that way. And then I'll make another blank slide, and I'll put my next student's picture up there. And I'll just keep going through that process as they're working on it. Right? Now, the way we get this slide deck, so this step one was to have the students give the teacher the information. Step two is to have the teachers present the final product, curate it, if you will. The way that I'm selecting to do it in this activity is by saying File and Publish to the web. Now, why am I doing that instead of just hitting share and giving them the share link? Well, number one is when you publish it to the web, you don't get all this garbly-gook in the outline version over here. It's just the slide. So it makes it a little bit nicer in my opinion. The other thing is there's no chance for editing to happen in the publish to the web version. So again, I'm going to say File, Publish to the web. I'm going to choose link in this case. We can also embed it, which you'll see in just a second. But if I wanted to, I can say link, auto advance every 3 seconds. You can change that if you want, totally up to you. These two options, I'm not going to check them. Again, sorry if you already saw this in the Seesaw video. I'm not going to check this first one because as soon as someone looks at that link, it would automatically start advancing the slides every 3 seconds unless they do something, and sometimes it can be confusing to know what to do as the user. So I don't want that oh my God, it moved and I wasn't ready thing to happen. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. They're going to be able to advance it by clicking on the little arrow or clicking the arrow keys or clicking the slides, all the normal stuff with a slideshow. Same thing with the last one, restart the slideshow after the last slide. I'm going to leave that off. And then I'm going to click publish, right? And do you really want to publish it? Yes, I do. Now, that link, I can take that link and I can post that in my Schoology course. I can post that in my Google Classroom. I can message it to whomever. And when they click on that link, they will be able to see this slide deck as if it was in this version, right? In present mode. It would look just like that. And they could go forwards and backwards and life is good. Now, I know what you may be thinking. What about if I make changes? Do I have to give them a new link? Nope, just like the share link, that publish to the web link, which again, if you need it again, just click publish to the web again. That link is going to auto update if any changes are made. So it's great. You push that link out once and you can constantly change on the back end and it will always be the newest version for your user when they click on it or refresh. Really nice feature in my opinion. Now, the magic that I pulled over in Schoology to display it, which you could also sort of do in Google Classroom, the difference I'm going to do here is the embed code. The link will take you out and open like a new tab. Embed lets it play within the window. So when I select the embed code, it says here I have to press Command C because I'm on a Mac. On Windows, it'd be Control C to copy that. I'm going to head over to Schoology, and here is how I made that visible link for my students so they didn't have to open a new tab, right? I used pages in Schoology, and that's how this is made. So let me show you, right? I'm going to say add a material and add a page. Now there's a couple little sneaky things in here, so I'll try and make sure you're aware of them. The first thing that I'll do is I'll say meet our fellow learners. Sure, let's do that. If you want to put text in here, you certainly can. You don't have to. You could just put the slide deck in. One way to do that is, and this is tricky part number one, is to click these little 2 dots over here that says switch to HTML. I'm just going to click that, and now you see it says switch to visual, right? That's your WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. I'm going to paste all that text that I copied here. Blah, 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 blah. And it's crazy. You don't need to know what it says. It's totally fine. But if I go back to the visual editor, you'll see now there's this big yellow box. That's your slide deck, right? That's the I just went backwards. That's the space it's going to take up. And you can drag it to resize it if you would like, right? It doesn't look like I did, but I swear I did. If you're putting text in, let me show you the other way to do that. If you wrote some, if you wrote some text in and then you wanted to add it here, you could switch to HTML, space down, paste it again. Okay, that works. You could totally do that. You could also, this way is a little bit more complicated, but maybe it'll work for you. Insert content, insert media, select from the web, media, and notice it now says embed. So I could paste that link in there and I'm good to go. Right, gets you there. The last thing that's really important, okay, this is the last little trick. This option right here, display on new page. What's going to happen is students will have to click on the name, meet our fellow learners, and then they'll be able to view the slide deck. If I click on this so it's now colored in, it says display in line. That's going to just show it beneath. So that's what we want, is display in line. We want it to kind of be like a colored in piece of paper as opposed to a black and white paper. So what I'm going to do to show you the difference is I'll do this one as the new page, just so you can see what it should not look like. So again, you're going to have it say display in line. Right? When I click on it, and the page refreshes, waiting for it. There it is. That's what it'll look like when it says display in a new page. I have to click on it and then I can view it with the text, right? As opposed to when I do inline, it gives the name and it shows the slide deck right here that if there's more than one slide present, people can navigate through it. So this is what you're looking for, inline. Truthfully, in my Google Classroom class, within the classwork, I just added a new material, a new resource, right? I said material, and I said add a link. And actually, I wonder if I could embed it here. Let's try. Boop. Who knows? Create. Oh, nope, I lied. Haha, just kidding. Title is Meet Our Fellow Learners. Post. Nope, it's still click. So if you know a way to get it to embed that way in Google Classroom, please put that down in the comments so that people can know. So if you're watching the video right now, quick, scroll down to the comments, see if anybody put anything down there, because I would love to learn how to do that. I'm still learning the ins and outs of Google Classroom. But that pretty much will cover both Schoology, Google Classroom, and just about any other environment you're going to find yourself in when it comes to these assignments in Google Docs. Now, the next one we're going to look at is Flipgrid, and that's kind of, well, flipping everything on its head, because Flipgrid is going to be an all-in-one tool. It's the one tool that doesn't require the teacher to curate everything. So let's take a look at how to do this with Flipgrid. All right, so Flipgrid is the one that is a little bit different in the sense that the teacher doesn't have to curate anything. You just make the space, the students post their responses, and they can go and view the other responses. So here is a topic that I created, and I totally know that you can see the flip code. Feel free to hop onto this grid and introduce yourself. It is a public grid. I'd love to see what's up there. Because it's public, it is moderated. So if you don't see yours right away, have no fear. I'll approve it as soon as it's appropriate and I can. But basically what I did was create a topic. And since Flipgrid is its own recording tool and its own curation tool, if you will, I wasn't necessarily sure that people needed a template for this like they did in all the other platforms where we were using Google Slides. But I also know that not everyone is comfortable being on a camera, right, and taking a video of themselves. So I still included that template here as a copy, right, forced copy, which is what this link gives you, as well as the topic focus and this. They all take you and create a copy of that template, where I encourage the students to use that as a script, create a screencast with it, whatever the case may be. But here I have the questions of how do you correctly pronounce your name? Be sure to add your name to the selfie at the end so that we know who you are. I know it posts it there, but it's just a little bit of flair. It also, depending on how your settings are built for Flipgrid, it may not post all the students' information here. So you may have them post whatever is appropriate. And then same questions that I had before. What's a goal you have? What's something that you're most proud of? What are the activities that you're involved with? And if you're familiar with Flipgrid, right, here comes the webcam. When they click on this record a response button, bop, hey, there I am making my recording. And there's all sorts of fun options that they can play around with. Some of the things that I love are they can upload a clip. So they can make a different recording somewhere else and just upload that clip instead of using this platform. Or they can just do a mic only. That's pretty cool. They can mute things, they can record. There's just all different sorts of options that are available, in addition to putting up pictures, stickers, the board where you can have a whiteboard, blackboard, different kinds of things, how big it wants to it's such a powerful tool. But wait, there's more. Rest in peace, Ron Popeil. When I click on this introduce yourself right here, it shows all the information that they need, but without it being in the recording. So that's pretty cool. They can have their notes, and like Flipgrid has always had their sticky notes that you can add. So just super duper cool, and life is good. So that's what it looks like. And you'll notice one thing that I've seen teachers do that I think is phenomenal with Flipgrid is they post the first response. So that way students can kind of watch the video and get a feel for what it might look like when they give a response. It also allows the teacher to be themselves, maybe show some errors, right? Show some mistakes happening, that we're all human, and that wonderful little confidence boost that we're not perfect and nobody's perfect. So how did I build all this? Well, let's head over to the educator dashboard and see what was done there. The first step is I had a what do you call it, discussion going. And so I made the grid, made the topic. But let's go. Once you figure out what grid you want to be on, I used my sample grid. I'm just going to create a new topic. There's really nothing new here, so you can certainly go and search out things. But the way that I did it, right, I added my title, I added my information here. When I had a link that I wanted my students to follow, I just clicked the little link icon and inserted the link in there, so it was there. I also put it here as a media, as a focus. So permissions, because it's public, I can't do a whole lot about that right now. I couldn't turn off moderation, but I could set the recording time to be whatever I want. I did 5 minutes because who knows, do what works for you. Whether you want comments to be available or not. And then under more options, I don't think I put a link in mine necessarily, but I did take off the view count, and I took off the download and share. Why did I do that? It says it can only be downloaded and shared by their owners, which is cool. I don't know if I necessarily want that part. I don't want a video to make its way out in that regard. View count, I don't think that's important at all. I don't want to have that kind of social media like type thing happening here. It's not what I'm up to. And that was about it, right? I hit create topic and boom, I was ready to go. So that is how you can make this all happen inside Flipgrid, which again is really cool because when you go check it out as a student, let's see if I can get back there. Boop, 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 Flipgrid. Yep, that's okay. When you go view it as a student, it will just show all the different videos and it will play them one after the other when I go as a student. Here we go, login as me. So it'll just have them all here and it will play one right after the other, or they can click on who they want to learn more about. So there you go. That's making this happen in Flipgrid. All right, friends, so there you have it. The start of the year introduction activity done, like 5 different ways. So I hope that you find this helpful. If you did, please feel free to give this video a thumbs up. And as always, you can smash that subscribe button to get updates and notifications when new content like this video, hopefully not this long, is posted. If you've watched it all the way to the end, thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work. I hope that your summer vacation was exactly what you needed it to be. And I wish you the best of luck for the 2021-2022 school year. Take care, everybody.